Assalamu alaikum. This is a tutorial about how you can select a final year project when you are about to reach your fourth year. You have done 3 years of education, and now the fourth year is coming up, and you are not exactly sure what kind of project you should select, how to select that project, what will your supervisor require you to do in order to complete the project. So these are the questions that I would like to answer with this short presentation, and hopefully you will get a good idea as to uh, how to select the project, what to do, what things are looked into when you bring your project idea. So this should give you a preliminary overview as to what a final project is and how you should go about selecting the project. At the same time, in the end, I have given some examples of the mistakes that the students do, like what kind of projects they bring in and what are the problems with those project ideas. So I would like to give you a good understanding of how this process should continue and how you should search for a good idea and what you should bring to your supervisor or the expected supervisor that you want to have for your project. So we begin with the purpose of an FIP. So what purpose does an FIP serve? So it is a validation that you know what you learned in the past 3 years. So you have been working and you have been learning in your bachelor's from year 1 all the way to year 3 the many basic concepts of CS, and the whole idea is that now since you have all those basic concepts cleared, you should have enough information to create a project on your own. So the fourth year is the validation of the ideas that you have done and you have cleared in the past. So as a result, your project idea should contain all the CS concepts, the basic CS concepts that you have done, and you have to show your competence in those CS concepts. So the main emphasis is always to find an easy solution to a daily problem, and that problem should be solved using the CS concepts. So the whole idea of computer science is to make your life easier. So if there is some problem that you encounter daily, and you have a good CS solution to that, so that can become a good FIP idea, provided it is a big enough idea. Otherwise, it will be a semester project. So the FIP idea needs to be big, so that people, so at least 2 or 3 people, or even 4 people, can work on that basic idea. And finally, the whole purpose is that you go through a complete software development cycle. So if you have done software engineering, you know that you start with a basic idea, you gather the requirements, you form a design, and based on the design you do coding, and then you do testing. And once you do some rigorous testing, that is when you launch your project, and then you go through a maintenance cycle. So all the way up till the launch of the project, that is what is covered in your final year project, and you have to manage the resources that you have available uh, to you. Um, so whenever you are selecting a final year project, so there are two major parts that always need to be addressed. The first part is the software engineering part, and the second part is the software development part. The software engineering part, okay, let's move on to the next slide. So the software engineering part, it includes all the designing and documentation. So people tend to confuse what is computer science, what is software engineering, what is computer engineering, and what is software development. So software engineering is more like what an architect is. So architect is a person who is responsible to design a building, and then a civil engineer is required to construct the building. So A software engineer is sort of like an architect, and he or she is responsible to design the software. So everything that goes into a design, that is part of software engineering. So in this case, we use the Unified Modeling Language, or UML as we know it, UML diagrams, and these should at least contain number one, the use cases. The use cases is, as the name says, how we are going to use a certain software. So for example, if you are going to an ATM machine, one of the use case is to extract money. The second use case is to get to check your balance. The third use case is to put some money in the ATM. Fourth use case is to pay a bill using ATM. So all of these are the use cases. And then we have the activity diagram. So what this means is that how you are going to perform the activity. So the first use case was, as I said, to extract money. But the activity is that you go into the ATM machine, you lock the door, then you put in your card, then you put in your PIN code, then you select the amount of money, and then you get the money. Okay. So this is an activity that is performed when you are doing the extracting money use case. And finally, you have the class diagram. So whatever is happening at the back end, so you define the classes, how the classes are going to communicate to actually uh, get the task done. Those are covered in the class diagram. So there may be more diagrams like the sequence diagram, but these are the most critical diagrams that you must at least you should have done at least some work on these diagrams. And when we talk about class diagrams, so you should have a very good understanding of association, aggregation, composition, dependency, generalization, and realization. Okay, so these are all the class diagram utility concepts. So all the class diagrams concepts, and these are very important to know because these are used in design patterns, and design patterns are really very important these days. Almost all of the software houses, they use some sort of design pattern. Knowing these relationships is important, and if you know these relationships, it will be very easier to understand a design pattern, and then you can justify how to use a design pattern in your design. Uh, so before you start to work, you need to create these designs. Okay, you have to create the entire design of the software, and they should get them improved by your supervisor so that they have a good idea as to what they are doing, they are going to do in the future, and the supervisor also has a good idea what they are going to do in the future. It is possible the design may change because as you work, you realize like you haven't taken into account a few things, but more or less, once you have a design in order to make the software, it becomes very easy. Then the second part is the software development part, and this contains the actual development of the software. So 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 this so what this means is that before you bring your software, you should have a good idea as to what technologies you are going to use, what libraries are you going to use, and most importantly, what kind of a data structure algorithm will be used in order to solve the problem that you have brought in. So these points are extremely important when you are coming up with your software idea or your FIP idea. So if you come in and you say that okay, we want to make a service to call an ambulance at a moment's notice. So basically what you're doing is you are creating something which is very similar to a Kareem. So you are creating a Kareem for ambulances. So if you just say that, it doesn't give us any information what you want to achieve, what background checks you have done, what background information you have brought in. It just seems to us that okay, you had this idea, you just brought in, you have no idea how you are going to create it. So you should give us something to go on before we approve a certain idea. So the things that you should avoid there are many tutorials available that help students to make different apps easily. Okay, so if you are thinking that you can just follow tutorials and just make an app, so that will not cut it, because that will actually create an app for you and it will not show us your prowess when it comes to computer science or software engineering. Uh, and then some students, what they do is they want to come up with some machine learning software, because machine learning is apparently very popular these days. So they just come up with, they just want that, okay, they should have an idea and they should apply some machine learning to it, and that should get the project approved. Now that will not work, um, because what you will be doing is just calling in some libraries, and the libraries is going to do the job for you, and your input in the project will be minimal. Uh, so so such projects are normally discouraged, and and uh, uh, and even though they are discouraged, but we can allow these projects, because um, because there is possible that you have some underlying primary focus. So what this means is that these projects are discouraged, but they can be approved as a part of a bigger project. So these things can be used to achieve a primary focus. So that primary focus should be separate from these kind of projects, and these ideas should help us in achieving that primary focus. So then these ideas can be used. I will give you examples how that can be done. So I'll show you in a while, once when these slides we move forward towards the examples. Reinventing the wheel is also not encouraged unless it exhibits serious learning. What this means is that there's something which has been done already and you want to work on that, and that can only be approved if there is a lot of learning in that project. For example, making a ray tracer. So a ray tracer is actually a computer graphics entity that you create, and you can render scenes with a ray tracer. So if you are making something which is sort of like a ray tracer, which involves a lot of math and computer science and data structures, so that can be approved. Similarly, making a neural network from scratch to solve a problem. So what this means is that you create the algorithm for machine learning from scratch and then use that algorithm to solve a problem. So then if you are doing something like that, it can be it may be allowed, because the amount of learning you are going to do in making something like that is immense. So something like that can be accepted, uh, but it is normally preferred that you don't reinvent the wheel. So now, what should your project idea contain? Uh, so so whenever you are coming up with the project idea, so these are the questions that you should ask when you or you should do when you bring in your project idea. So the first one is, what problem is the idea going to solve? So that is the most critical part. That if you are going to bring an idea, so if you are going to bring a solution, so what problem is that solution going to solve? And then you have really need to ask, does the solution really require a digital solution? So for example, you go to a mall and you park your car, and you uh, you say that, okay, I have parked my car, but I need to know where the car should be parked. And so you make an app which actually remembers where you have parked the car. But the same thing can easily be done if you just send an SMS to somebody like, okay, my car is parked at a certain location. You just write down a note. So you don't really need to create an application just for this. Okay, so in that case, the project idea will fail. Then you should ask what data structure algorithm will be used to solve the problem. So not only that you have a problem, but you need to come up with a solution. Like, is this problem really big enough that you have to devise a new data structures and new algorithms? Otherwise, this problem cannot be solved. So you have to look into something like that. Then is the project big enough so that everyone plays their part in it? So normally people bring in a very small project, it becomes very hard to justify who was working on which part. So it is important that you have that figured out before you bring in your project. What research literature review have the students done on their project already that can help them in coming up with a solution? So this means that okay, you had an idea in your mind and you thought, okay, let's see what other people have done. So you just go on, you do some Google searches, and you come across a few papers, and then you read those papers. And once you read those papers, you get a good idea as to what other people have done so far. And you need to like refer those ideas or those papers when you bring in your idea, so that we know that you haven't just thought of the idea, but you have done some uh, groundwork on that. Uh, then a paper prototype that shows that exact function of the project, so we can better visualize the project. So a paper prototype is a very quick way of showing what you have in your head. And if you create a paper prototype and show it to your supervisor, so he or she will too have a very good idea as to what kind of a project you're going to make. And I have put down this link that you can click on. You can see this. It's about Google rapid prototyping ideas. You should see this video even if you're not working on a FIP. It's a really good video and it gives you a good idea as to how the paper prototypes are created. And finally, does the idea have enough material to be converted into a research paper? So this is something which is not mandatory, but it is desired because it has two benefits. The first benefit is that uh, the supervisor, they are always looking for some research paper to put out. So they will be happy to work with you on an idea like this. Secondly, if your idea can be converted into a research paper, so that sits very well with with your CV, with your any master's application that you send, or even for some jobs. So that shows that you are dedicated into your work and you have some publication already before even going to master. So this shows us that the person does know how to work hard and does know how to convert an idea into researchable material. So this is very encouraging whenever you are applying to different scholarships, and these things really matter over there. Uh, then we come across a few tools. So these, when you are coming with your FIP idea and you are going to work on the FIP idea, you should look into these tools. Milanote and Trello, these are management tools, so you can better manage what you are working on, what you have worked on, and what you will be working on. So these are very important. You should look into these tools and you should work with these tools. Secondly is GitHub. GitHub is very important. Firstly, like it's a version controlling software, so it makes sure that your software is not lost if maybe if your hard disk crashes or something else goes wrong, or you delete the files by mistake. So GitHub stores everything in the cloud, so you can always retrieve your project from the cloud. So and then it also helps in collaborating between your colleagues. And finally, GitHub is used in many software houses. So knowing this beforehand is easier. And now they have a desktop application already, so it makes life very easy when you are uploading your project or you're retrieving your project. And finally, you can use Slack. Slack is a communication tool. I do not recommend using WhatsApp. Even you can use Discord, but Discord even is not that good. Slack is made specifically for collaborating collaborating in a project. So I would recommend strongly that you use Slack instead of WhatsApp. Don't use WhatsApp, or you can use Discord, but Discord is specifically for gaming, so I don't recommend that you use that. Okay, so here are a few examples that I will show you like three examples of the projects that we normally get, uh, and what is wrong with those projects, and then I will also try to tell you like how that project can be improved. um, so we start off with these three examples. I'm just going to discuss these three examples because these are normally the most common projects that we get. So now I should tell you like what is the problem with these projects. So the first is we want to make an app to make it easier for you to rent a car. And this is the first. Second one is like people who are very enthusiastic in game development, they say that we want to make our own battle royale game or some other game. So these days battle royale is very popular, so normally people come up with this kind of idea. Third one is we want to use machine learning to identify objects on screen. So these are those people who want to do something in machine learning. They cannot think of anything, and they even if they do think of something, so putting it down like this doesn't tell us anything what they want to do and how they will achieve it. So now we move on towards the rent-a-car. It is not an application that requires an urgency of service. So for example, if you have Food Panda or if you have Kareem, so you require an urgent delivery service, and so you need food very quickly. And when you are normally doing rent-a-car, so it's not really required to be that urgent. Uh, so you can call it Kareem with a few additional steps. Secondly, if you do want to rent a car, you are normally not in a hurry. You can do a simple Google search, and it will give you all the car renting services. Thirdly, people prefer to communicate vocally when renting a car because they need to tell, you need to ask about details, and normally those details are not available on a mobile phone. And in Pakistan, normally people prefer to talk on phone rather than read all the details on a website. And finally, it is a simple database accessing application for mobile. So you can do the same thing with your desktop machine, or you are going to do the same thing with your mobile. So there's nothing revolutionary going on. So how to improve this? So what you can do is you can come up with this idea that you add an IoT device that sends the data about the state of the car back to the server, so that the car economy can be better managed. So somebody who is renting a car, he needs to know like how much the car is idling, where the car is going, what kind of roads are there, uh, how much wear and tear has happened into the car, if there is something going wrong with the car. So that person needs that information. So if you come up with an IoT device that sends the data about all of his cars uh, back to the person, back to a server where these cars can be managed, so that kind of project that can work, because you are going to learn about networking, you are going to learn about the IoT devices, you are going to learn about the cloud implementation. So then this will become a good viable project. Now the battle royale game. So the problem is that networking based games are extremely difficult to pull off. So whenever there is networking, it's very hard to write good networking code to make that work. Then no one takes a game seriously as an FIP. So if you say that in my FIP I'm making a game, nobody is going to take you seriously. So that is a problem. I do know that there's a lot that goes into making a game, but it's never perceived in a positive light, both locally and abroad. So. Uh, and mainly the reason is that it does not provide a solution to a problem in life. So when you play a game, so you're not actually providing any solution. You are just saying like, okay, here's my game, you should play it. And and people only play your game if they want to relax and to provide and to get entertainment. Otherwise, the game does not really provide anything useful. And finally, there are many tutorials available online by which you can make your game. So all the time, what you will be doing is you will be implementing one tutorial of the after another, and you will not be making something of your own. And that is normally what people do, and that's why it's normally the game development is discouraged. So how it can be improved? So it can be improved that you create a simulation which shows how people will react when terrorists enter a building. So suppose there is a big hall. It has only two entrances, and the terrorist enters from one of the entrances, and they start to fire. So in that case, everybody is going to run towards the only available entrance, and they will bunch up at that entrance, and they will cause more casualties. So that kind of behavior, it's in order to exhibit that kind of behavior, you need to program intelligent AI. You need to implement good path navigation, and then you can further improve this idea by saying, okay, here's a building. It has two entrances. So this the design of the building can be improved if you provide four entrances. So that way the people can easily escape the onslaught by going through different doors, and that will reduce the casualties. So then this small simulation, it does not only provide you with opportunity to implement a lot of data structures and pathfinding algorithms, but it also provides a solution that how the design of a current building be improved with time, and then it becomes a viable solutions, and then it stops being a game. It starts becoming a simulation that shows us like how to reduce casualties during terrorist activities. And then there another common project that they come up with is something like this: object identification through ML. So what they normally do is they use the library called YOLO. I think it's 5.0 this time. So you only learn once. So that is the name of the library. And they normally, what they do is they implement this library using Python. They train it using their own data set, and then they show us that okay, that the AI has detected the objects easily. So what this shows us is that okay, you know how to run Python and how to run the library, but it does not tell us like okay, you did not make this library. It was a pre-built library. So all you did was turn on the switch. Okay, with a few extra steps. So you did a few extra steps because otherwise you will not be able to turn on the switch once you turn on the switch. So it trained itself and it provided you with the solution. So in such a scenario, so how this can be improved is that uh, your software actually makes relationships between object identification and the users. For example, if you have a camera set up in a room and somebody is using their mobile phone uh, for a few hours, so your software is going to identify the person, and it is also going to identify the cellular phone, and then it's with the frequency of use is going to make the relationship that this individual owns that device. So even if the individual is not present in the room, it is going to track that device, and it will always create the relationship between the owner and the device. So during this time, somebody picks up the phone and takes it with them. So it's going to like form this new relationship, and it will keep tracking keep tracking and keep telling us that okay, this phone belongs to a certain individual, but currently it is in possession with that individual. And this can become very important because when we are at home, we normally forget where we put our keys, or where is the TV remote. So this way, the system is going to identify where the object is, who owns the object, and where the object is placed. So then this kind of idea may work. So you can see that over here I am using machine learning, but that is not the main focus. The main focus is creating these relationships, and in order to create these relationships, you have to work on graphs, or maybe even trees, and you have to make those trees. So making those graphs and making those trees, that becomes the main focus of the project, and then this application can be a good machine learning application. Okay, so these were the three examples, and I hope that uh, with this you have a pretty good idea how to select your project, and hopefully when you will be selecting this your FIP project, you will keep these things in mind and bring us some new researched innovative ideas when you are selecting your FYP. So with that, I end this small tutorial, and I hope that you learned a lot and you will make some excellent FYPs when you will be doing your final year. So till next time, best of luck.